Good morning, I'm Velvet with Quality Sewing and Vacuum, and I'm a sewing educator at one of our 11 locations here in the Pacific Northwest. And thank you for joining me this morning for How Do I? Today I'm going to talk about the cleaning and maintenance of your machine. Cleaning your machine is very important. It ensures that your machine will stay working for you for many, many years to come. And there's a few different things that go along with cleaning your machine. First, we'll talk about needles and thread. So changing your needle frequently is very, very important. Needles can break. That is a normal thing that happens when sewing, and they can break for a variety of different reasons. So they can hit a pin or a thick piece of fabric. They could potentially have a weak point on them, or maybe you've been using them for a long time without changing it. Those can easily break a needle. And to change them, what you'll need first is a screwdriver. Screwdrivers that come with your sewing machine typically look a couple of different ways. It depends on the model that you have. So this one here has a long black handle. Well, this one doesn't really look like a screwdriver, more just like a hunk of metal in a strange shape, but these will help ensure that you can open up the machine in different ways more easily. So let's go ahead and take out our needle. So down here we have our presser foot, and we're going to want to remove this from the machine so we can also start the cleaning process. You typically don't have to remove this to change a needle, but I'm going to take it off for now. So I'm going to remove my presser foot, and I'm also going to remove my ankle just preemptively so I can do the cleaning later. I'm also doing this with the machine turned off. You don't have to take a needle out with the machine turned off, but this will be for the cleaning process later. So now I'm going to grab my screwdriver. So I'm grabbing the one here with the black handle because this one makes it a little bit easier to get to the needle bar. So this down here is our needle bar that holds the needle into the machine. And there is a small black screw here on this model that you will loosen to take the needle out. You typically do not have to remove the screw entirely to take the needle out of the machine. So once I've loosened the screw, I can go ahead and pull my needle out of the machine. If you notice, I hold on to the needle when I remove it. Another pro tip is using a piece of fabric and placing this underneath where the presser foot would be to help prevent the needle from falling into the machine. Now I can go ahead and replace it with my brand new needle. So you always want to make sure that the rounded side goes towards the front and the flat side goes towards the back. You have to make sure that you put it in correctly or the machine will not sew correctly. Place the needle under the needle bar and push it up as high as it will go in the machine. Then I like to use my fingers to tighten in this screw as tight as I can, and I'll do it just a little bit more with my screwdriver. You really want to make sure this is in here nice and tight, otherwise it can fall out of the machine when sewing. Another really handy tip on these machines is that sometimes they have what's called a needle viewpoint. So underneath where the needle bar is located, there is typically going to be a small little hole. If I use my hand wheel here on the side, I can lower the needle just a bit and you might be able to see it. So there's usually a hole right in here that you can see the top of the needle hitting a small metal dot. The needle has to be in its highest position whenever you're using the machine or it won't sew correctly and you cannot use an automatic needle threader. Not every model of machine will have this feature, but if it does, it's a good idea to know where it's at. Here at Quality, we have a lot of really amazing tools that will help make your sewing easier. This one here is one of my favorites. This is called the MyPad, and this actually comes with a small floral pin here that you place in the position that you want your needle to be. So if I'm using a leather 9014 needle, I can place the pin there to make sure that I remember what type of needle is in my machine currently. I can also take a needle that isn't necessarily old or bad and reuse it again by placing it into one of these sections here so I know what type of needle it is and know that it's still a good needle. It is recommended to change your needles frequently. It's recommended to do that every 8 to 10 hours of sewing or every 2 to 3 projects, whatever is easier for you to remember. Next, let's go into thread. So thread is just as important as needles, and a lot of people don't realize that thread actually has a shelf life and doesn't last forever. On average, polyester thread lasts about 30 to 50 years, while cotton thread lasts about 10. So which one you use is personally up to you and your project, but it is a good idea to test whether or not your thread is still good for your machines. So what I like to do is a break test. So I will take the thread and place it in both of my hands and just wrap it around my fingers. I leave quite a few inches in between, maybe about 8 to 10 inches, and then I give the thread a good tug in between there. If it breaks very easily when I'm giving it tension, it's likely not good for your sewing machine anymore, and you would like to dispose of that. All right. Let's get into the actual cleaning process. So for cleaning our machines, we want to make sure we're using the right tools. And our machines typically come with a couple different things to get you started for the cleaning process. One of those is a little cleaning brush. Now, this little brush is pretty small and it will likely get dirty pretty fast. Here at Quality, we carry a couple different options for cleaning brushes that will make this a little bit easier for you. So we have a few different options here. This one here is one of my personal favorites because this one can go pretty deep into the machine and can also bend in the middle to get into those hard to reach places. Besides just our cleaning brushes, you can also use a variety of other types of tools. So here we have canned air. Canned air can be used as more of a surface cleaner on your sewing machines. So I usually use this when the bobbin case has been removed from my machine, and I will gently spray the case to remove any pesky dust. But you usually don't want to spray anything like this on any computer or electronic parts on your machine. Another really great option is mini vacuums. We carry the Sonic Power line of mini vacuums. These are rechargeable, they're super easy to empty out, and they have a variety of different types of mini attachments that you can put on the end of the vacuum to make it easy to get inside of your machine. All right, let's go ahead and clean. So here on my Baby Lock model, I typically like to remove the accessory case first, make sure the machine is off, and I also make sure that I've removed the presser foot, which are all things that I already have done. Next, I need to remove this case here. So you have two covers on this model. We have this gray one, and then we have a metal needle plate. For the gray one here, it comes off pretty easily without any tools. I place both of my hands on the plate, and then I gently apply pressure and pull forward to release the case. Then I want to remove the metal needle plate that covers my feed dogs. So this right here is going to be a really handy screwdriver for this job because it is flat and it's much smaller than the other one and easier to access these two screws here at the back. A lot of the time, if you get it just loose enough, you can usually do the rest of it with your finger. And then I will take my screws and any of my other accessories, and I like to put them into little pin dishes. That way it makes it a lot easier for me to hold on to my accessories and I don't lose anything. Sometimes taking the screws out are the longest part. All right. Almost. All right. So now we can go ahead and remove this metal plate here, and we have access to the rest of the machine. So typically dust will build up in this area of the machine on top of the feed dogs, even down here, and also underneath the bobbin case. So the bobbin case here can actually be removed from the machine and cleaned itself. So this is where I will typically use my little brushes, and I will go in and dust out my case. You can even use things like microfiber cloth to remove any dust that just simply will not remove with a regular brush. And you don't want to be too hard on this. Just be gentle, you don't want to break anything. Now when I get into the inside of the machine here, this area is where all of the little dust bunnies love to live. So I will take my brush and I will clean everything out. This is also where that little mini vacuum can really come in handy to get any of those big pieces that fall deep into the machine that you can't really reach. I can also go in with my cloth here and I can wipe out the inside and around the edges here, just being gentle and careful not to mess anything up on my machine. I can also use that canned air here on my bobbin case on the inside, just to make sure there's no leftover fuzz. So now I can go ahead and place this back into my machine. There is a little tiny white arrow here on the side of the bobbin case that matches a little white dot here on the metal of our machine. And we want to make sure that these two line up when we put this in. Now that the bobbin case is back in place, I can go ahead and put the rest of the machine back together. So going back in the order I went from, we're going to put the metal plate back on. And I'm going to grab my screws here. I will usually screw down as much as I can with my finger and then do it more with the screwdriver to ensure that it stays in place. It's really important to get comfortable with taking your machine apart because it is a huge part of owning a sewing machine. Cleaning them frequently is very, very important, and it's recommended to clean them just as often as you change your needles. So every 8 to 10 hours of sewing or every 2 to 3 projects. Some projects I will actually clean my machine more than that. It just depends on what I'm sewing on. I make a lot of garments myself, so things like fur and terry cloth, minky, anything that would cause any extra debris buildup, you may have to clean your machine more frequently. All right. Now that the metal plate is back on, we're going to go ahead and put the plastic plate back on here. And there is a little notch here at the back. This notch will slip into this metal hole here into our metal plate. So I want to put that in at an angle first and then lay this flat against the machine. And then I'm going to push back until it clicks in place. And there we are. We've cleaned our machine. So this style of machine here is what's called a drop-in bobbin. So there are other styles of machines that you may have that require cleaning as well. So over here I have my Bernina. And we're going to go overhead and move over here to that. So on my Bernina, we have a bottom loading style bobbin here. And we're going to go ahead and open up this case down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to take out the bobbin case. So on the bobbin case itself, there is a little horizontal metal piece, and I'm going to gently press that until the case pops out. And then I'm going to remove the bobbin if there is a bobbin in my machine. Now, just like the last model, I have the machine turned off while I am doing this. Next, I'm going to go ahead and remove this metal frame here that's holding the rest of the case in. There is a little silver latch here on the left side, and I'm going to push this to the left so the door flips down. And then I'm going to remove the full metal case. So on a Bernina, a lot of these models actually have to be oiled, and they do require specific oil. It is really important to know what style of machine that you have, and you'll want to refer to your owner's manual to figure out what type of oil that it needs. You should never use anything but standard sewing machine oil in a sewing machine. Very, very important. Our previous model that I was going over, our baby lock here, this model does not need to be oiled. The only time that it will get oiled is if you choose to send your machine up to a service center like we have here in Tukwila, where your machine will be serviced, cleaned, and any oil that needs to be changed on the inside of the machine will be done by a technician. So back to our bobbin case here on our Bernina. So on the Bernina bobbin cases, there are 2 sections here that you will need to oil. There is a small little yellow pad on either side of this spring that you will put a drop of oil in when the machine needs it. Typically, the machine needs a drop of oil every 35,000 stitches, but I would definitely refer to your manual because each model can be a little bit different. So once the machine has been oiled, I will place this to the side and I will go ahead and I will dust out my bobbin case area. So just like our other model here, you're going to use your little cleaning brush to go in and dust out the hook race here. Just make sure everything is nice and clean. Once again, I can use a microfiber cloth to get off any debris that won't remove with a brush. And then I can also use my mini vacuums if there's any debris that I can't get to. So next, I can go ahead and I can put the machine back together. So on our cases on a Bernina, there's going to be this sharp hook piece that actually sits up towards the top of the machine. So you kind of want to angle this to get it back into the opening here. And you usually have to fidget with it just a bit to get it to sit correctly in there. And it should feel a little bit of a click once it's in place. Perfect. There we go. Now we can go ahead and close the door. So you're going to push this back until it clicks. And then we can go ahead and reinsert our bobbin case. So I can put my bobbin back in if I'm going to start sewing again, or just place the case back in as usual. So this metal bar right here goes horizontal across the case, and the little wire here sticks up towards the top. So once you have it in correctly, it should pop right into place. One other spot that you can clean on your Bernina is going to be the feed dog area. So what you'd want to do here is you'd want to remove your presser foot. And on the side of the needle plate here, there is a little bullseye icon, and you actually press down on this and the case will pop up, and then you'll move the plate out of the way. Now in this area, I like to be very gentle because there are a lot of little delicate parts here on a Bernina. So I go in with my brush off the feed dogs and anything else that needs a good dusting. I can also use the mini vacuum here, but this is typically not a spot that I would use my canned air because there are a lot more smaller pieces here that I don't really want to mess with. So once everything is nice and clean, I can go ahead and place my cover back on top. And pop it down in place. Now I would be ready to sew again. So if you have any questions about the cleaning and maintenance of your machine, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And then make sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and any other social media that may be out there. Oh, we have some questions. I have heard that you should not use canned air. Sorry, I can only read part of it. On the actual machine because it can drive the dust bunnies further into the machine where they can't be reached. Yes, that's correct. So when I use canned air, I typically don't spray it down into the machine. I'm doing it as a surface cleaner. So I'm removing the full bobbin case and then using the canned air on the outside or on like maybe somewhere up here if I got like shreddy threads or something like that. But yes, correct. You don't want to put that nozzle deep into the machine because it will push the dust bunnies further in there. So yeah, great question. All right. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, but make sure to follow us on social media to check out more videos and tutorials that we have available to you. But thank you so much for joining me today for this segment of How Do I? And we'll see you again next Tuesday.